Ebook or not to ebook? Hamlet reference aside, this has been a very heated controversy among many people who love to read, myself included. My name is Gayathri and I'm a volunteer at South Fletcher's Brampton Library, and welcome to my Teen Talk. First off, let's take a look at why people believe that ebooks are the better option. First off, any device can download as many books as needed, and they consume very little storage on the device. For each book, your last read page will be saved, preventing you from searching for your page. Unlike on paper, you can easily edit the text format. From highlighting key points to changing the font entirely, it hardly takes a minute to make reading customized to what suits your eyes and your reading habits. Reading in the dark? No problem. Just adjust the brightness, and some online reading apps even have night settings. You can read anytime, anywhere, and sometimes even without Wi-Fi, depending on the app that you're using. Now, reading with a dictionary by your side has now become an old-fashioned method to expanding your vocabulary. However, ebooks now offer a much more efficient way to look up definitions without having to do a full Google search or flip through a heavy dictionary to locate a word. With just a click, you can get the exact definition that you need right by your text. Many e-readers have found that one of the biggest advantages of borrowing or downloading ebooks is that you don't need to worry about late fees. The book will either automatically return itself by the due date or let you know that it's time to return the book. Even if you do keep the book longer, there is no fee associated with late return or damage to the book, unlike normal public libraries, because you can't really damage an ebook. And lastly, and perhaps most obviously, this is a great way to contribute to saving the environment. We all are aware that printing out books with so many pages does play a significant role in deforestation. The more books that are printed, the more trees that go down. And ebooks aren't made of paper, and they're not even physical objects made out of material, which makes it really easy because you can carry it around just on your iPad or whatever device you choose to use. On the screen are some of the most popular platforms. Almost 25% of Canadians use one of the apps above to read ebooks, with Amazon Kindle being the most popular in North America. Here at the Brampton Library, many of our members use Libby, Overdrive, or Cloud Library to read ebooks through their Brampton Library account for free. Now, let's take a look at why majority of readers prefer to read solid printed books over ebooks or audiobooks. Of the many common pleasures from reading and holding a physical book in your hands, the smell of the pages is what wins the hearts of many book lovers. New book or not, there's always that refreshing, almost like chocolate smell to the pages of the book, as said by Pew Research. When reading a book, the texture of the paper matters. The act of holding the book in your hand, smelling the paper, hearing the binding creak, and turning the pages is a very human experience. The psychological impact of reading is also influenced by how many pages you've read and how many are still to be read. For many readers, particularly those who read fiction, reading can pull them out of this world and drag them into a new world where they would stay for as long as they could. Through the ever-growing involvement into the story, the readers like having a physical book to hold on to and to ground their emotions, almost to act like a support for the reader. Secondly, the average Canadian used to spend almost 6 hours and 45 minutes on the screen in 2019, pre-COVID. However, with the rapid shift to virtual environments since 2020, the average daily screen time for a Canadian is 11 hours, and that's insane. Almost half of your day is gone on the screen. After a long day of work or school, many people like to take a reading break, and the last thing they want is to read on another device. In this case, reading an actual physical paperback book can relax the reader and give them the break that they deserve. Now, many people would think that the pandemic would have reduced the number of books being borrowed at the library and would have increased the interest in ebooks. That wasn't exactly true. Many libraries and even bookstores still found that people had a very keen interest in reading paper books. At libraries, these books are free. With a library card, you can easily borrow books of your choice without having to pay for reading it. And in bookstores, many people have found that buying the book itself can be cheaper than paying a membership fee for months and months on an e-reading app such as Amazon Kindle. Bonus, you can keep the book as long as you want if you buy it. Lastly, believe it or not, many people these days are buying paper books to show off an impressive bookcase background during virtual meetings. This trend is more popular in America than it is in Canada, however, it's still happening. Sure, with a simple click, you can change the background to be what you want. However, many people find that a real bookcase brings them a different, better reputation and allows them to worry less about the glitchy virtual backgrounds. Now, with all the preferences that readers have, let's take a look at what science has to say about this matter and what the stats show. Why don't we first find out what our local Brampton Library members prefer? Now, that number on the screen, 1,607,782, is the number of physical books that were borrowed between all the branches of the Brampton Library just in 2021, right in between of the pandemic. And that shows that there's such an involvement with physical books, particularly in our Brampton community. Now, what's going to be surprising is the number of ebooks that were being borrowed. Only 499,213 ebooks were circulated between the Brampton libraries last year. Of course, that is on a mix of Cloud Library, Overdrive, and Libby, the three main platforms that the Brampton Library uses. And if we do the math, that's only 31%, not even 1/3 of the number of physical books that were borrowed last year. And again, this is right in between the pandemic. You would have expected that this number be higher or even closer to the number of physical books that were circulated. And lastly, the number of audiobooks. All of last year, we had about 155,138 audiobooks that were borrowed and circulated between the 6 library branches last year. Of course, audiobooks are not as popular as ebooks. However, many people do find them beneficial while multitasking. They can listen to their book while doing something else. Now, this is 31% of the number of ebooks borrowed last year. And this is only 9% of the number of physical books that were borrowed last year. I know, lots of math. Yet the numbers clearly show how physical books clearly dominate the industry. And now when we go to what psychology says, psychology is very firm on print book. And let's take a look at why it says no to ebook and why it says yes to physical book. So first off, research has showed us that reading on a screen changes the way our brain perceives the text, regardless of whether you use an ebook or you download books to your phone or tablet. And according to research from San Jose State University, screen-based reading behavior refers to our tendency to skim and explore a text rather than reading it deeply and intently as we would with printed books. And some people think that this comes from our habit of simply scrolling through social media without actually paying attention to its main content. And since it's become such a habit, we tend to do the same with ebooks. The focus of additional research has been on the effects of avoiding in-depth reading, and science acknowledges that we still know relatively little about the brain that reads digitally, that printed text simulates more of, deep reading, and that is what is, okay, I'm gonna stop there. I mixed up the sentences. Okay, science acknowledges that we still know relatively little about the brain that reads digitally, but there is a potential loss of the deep reading that printed text stimulates. And of course, reading ebooks on a device means you may be interrupted with a stream of notifications or ads popping up, which can distract the reader significantly. Being on a screen to read has us absorb more dopamine and can cause eye strain and even headaches. Staring at a screen can sometimes stop you from blinking as frequently as you normally would, which leads to dry eyes and to eyes that are strained. And of course, then it can lead to headaches and even severe migraines. And depending on how well you can see in your sight, and even if you have any sleep problems, this can significantly increase those. Now, why is print better according to science? As mentioned earlier, reading a physical book creates many sensory reactions that please the reader. Supporters of the printed word assert that a printed book serves to spark numerous senses in a way that an ebook cannot, in terms of the effect this has on our brain. A paper book has some characteristics that are distinct from other types of books, including the way it feels in the hand, how it looks and smells, and the satisfaction one experiences as they turn the pages of the book. According to research, reading a paper book can actually motivate people to try new things, and it makes significant life decisions feel less stressed, even be happier in general, whether that be due to what's going on in the plot of their story or just in general that relaxation that you feel when you're reading a book. In addition to enhancing our cognitive abilities, printed books also stimulate our emotional reactions. Print books are said to facilitate the reader in becoming more emotionally immersed in the book, which is related to the idea of maintaining our attention. According to Anne Mangin's research at University of Stavanger, readers who read sad stories on paper experienced higher degrees of empathy, transportation, immersion, and narrative coherence than readers who read the identical stories on iPads through ebook apps. So, if you really want to get lost in a story, go for the hard copy. Now, the ability to absorb information from a printed book over digital ones is another compelling argument in the to ebook or not to ebook debate. Unsurprisingly, we are better able to absorb and remember more information from printed books since they aid to keep our attention, and we do more reading and we're more focused when we do read. And in a study done at Stavanger University in Norway, 50 readers were given the same short narrative to read. Half of them did it on Kindle, and the other half did it on printed books. The participants were then asked to recall specific details from the story, and the findings showed that when they were asked to reconstruct the plot, readers who read the novel on Kindle considered it to be substantially more difficult, therefore proving that people can understand much better when they read the actual pages of the book. Now, I know I didn't give you all a straight answer, whether we should read an ebook or we shouldn't, whether we should read more physical books or we should read more ebooks and audiobooks. However, I'm going to leave you with this. It depends on the reader who you are. If you read very often, maybe even every day, and for long periods of time, maybe it's not the wisest choice to read an ebook for that long because of the medical reasons and what we learned about the psychology of how printed books help us to absorb better information. If you feel like you rarely read and you might just do it for research purposes or something short, then go ahead, go ebook. Either way, the Brampton Library and many libraries and bookstores across the world are offering so many ways for us to read. And ideally, no matter what age we are, reading is something that can unite a lot of people. And of course, while this debate keeps on going, whether they should ebook or not to ebook, we all know that as long as we read, nothing else matters. Thank you so much for listening, and signing off, Gayathri.